scored in the first. Swing and a drive out to right field. That one's got a chance and it's gone! Grand slam! Shohei Ohtani!
Hopefully by now you know who Shohei Ohtani is, but if you don't, it comes down to him being one of Major League Baseball's best hitters and one of its best pitchers for the last 3 seasons. This was unprecedented in MLB, and trust me, it is really impressive. I tried hitting a baseball myself this past summer. It is not so easy. In fact, it was one of the worst swings you will ever see. But naturally, Ohtani's sustained two-way dominance open up the question of what that would look like in other sports. Football was the most obvious contender due to its complete separation of offensive and defensive players. Well, meet Travis Hunter, who at the University of Colorado is doing something that hasn't been done consistently in college football in nearly 10 years, and hasn't been done consistently in the NFL for over 60. High volume success on both sides of the ball. At Collins Hill High School in Georgia was one of, if not the top prospect in all of high school football. When your lowest ranking as a prospect is 2 by ESPN, it's safe to say you're one of the best. Right away, he was clearly the best player because as a sophomore, he led the county in interceptions. You can't forget his 12 touchdowns as a receiver, but his junior year proved that he was the best prospect in the country. He caught over 130 passes for just a little over 1,700 yards and 24 touchdowns, as well as 8 interceptions. He did more of the same his senior year, and by the time his high school football career was over, he broke multiple school records, as well as a Georgia State record in career receiving touchdowns with 48. Hunter was being recruited by the top programs in the country, which included Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, and Oklahoma. But Florida State stands out the most, as in the spring of 2020, he had committed one day after making his school visit. But by December of 2021, when he was about to announce his commitment, a lot had changed. In one of the greatest signing day announcements you'll ever see, Travis Hunter made an unprecedented move. Without context, committing to Jackson State seems like a wild move, which begs the question, what had changed to make him commit to Jackson State? That answer is one of the greatest players in NFL history, Deion Sanders. From the moment he saw him play, there wasn't a need to evaluate him, immediately realizing he was the real deal. Primetime took over the head coaching position at Jackson State in 2020, and by the time Travis had committed, he had not only improved their program on the field, but also using his connections to improve their facilities, as well as endearing the program and the school more in the community. This commitment was the most shocking in the history of college football recruiting, as he became the first 5-star recruit to sign with an HBCU or FCS program. He was expected to dominate right away, and in their spring game, he not only caught 2 touchdowns, but intercepted 2 passes. They made it clear right away that he was going to play both sides of the ball. As far as dominating during the season, that was going to take some time, because after that spring game, he had off-season surgery on his right ankle, and during his freshman season, he aggravated the injury, forcing him to miss some valuable playing time. But in the 8 games played, he was, without question, effective, building up a ton of hype for his sophomore year. But after Deion Sanders made the announcement that he was going to be the head coach at the University of Colorado, Hunter entered the transfer portal and announced his transfer to Colorado 2 days later.
But at the end of the day, I committed to Coach Prime at Jackson State when he was there, and I want to honor my commitment and stay with him. You know what I'm saying?
We have now arrived to this point, and Travis Hunter is putting on a show. Through 2 games, he played roughly 96% of the defensive snaps and 82% of the offensive ones. In the first game at TCU, he caught 11 passes for 119 yards, and on defense, had 3 tackles and an interception. He recorded more tackles in the Nebraska game, but this time only had 3 catches for 73 yards. Even even though the receiving numbers were down, he's still extremely effective. If you consider that an off game, imagine what we have in store for the rest of his career. Now, it's still a long way to go, it's only his sophomore year, but while he's shown flashes of greatness early on, how would he handle adversity? In the Colorado State game, he was targeted even though the refs didn't call it, and after taking an unbelievable hit, he would come back the next drive. He was taken out later in the game and sent to a local hospital, with Deion Sanders confirming in his post-game press conference that Hunter would be out of Colorado's lineup for a couple of weeks. And before they came back to win against Colorado State, it was pretty clear that with him out of the game, the offense and defense suffered tremendously. Just his presence out there has defenses keyed in on him. Not only can he make the marquee plays on both sides of the ball, but he also opens up opportunities for his teammates to make impactful plays as well. Now, football players playing both ways is nothing new.
Tossing it to Sapp of all people for a first down.
So what makes Travis Hunter so special? To put it simply, he's doing it full time. You can make a case that he's the best wide receiver and corner on the team, and as far as Power 5 guys are concerned, not since Adoree Jackson and Jabril Peppers have we seen this type of two-way player. You also have Shaq Thompson, Owen Marisick, Chris Gamble, but they were clearly much better on one side of the ball. The two greatest without question are Charles Woodson and Champ Bailey. Both would go on to become college superstars, with Charles Woodson winning the Heisman and Champ Bailey becoming a consensus All-American and winning the nation's top defensive player award. Early on, Travis Hunter has showed similar potential to those two, but once they became professionals, they settled more into their defensive back roles. Even Charles Woodson, who won the Heisman Trophy, was mostly dominant on defense. Travis Hunter is more comparable to the likes of Champ Bailey and Chris Gamble. Both played and contributed on both sides of the ball consistently. Being on top of the depth chart on both sides of the ball makes his true sports comparison closer to Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani being not only the Angels' best pitcher but hitter too, it's extremely rare, and once his playing days are over, he'll be remembered as not only one of the greatest baseball players ever, but without question the most unique. Both Woodson and Bailey became first-round picks as well as Pro Football Hall of Famers. Some of y'all who don't watch football like that are probably asking, why would teams do that? If you have a player who's proven he can play both sides of the ball, coaches think that it would simply be too much work and wear and tear on the player's body. Now, it's important to mention Woodson and Bailey did play both sides occasionally, but never full time. Even Deion Sanders did this, but when he wanted to play receiver more, it was always a no. There was once a time period where professional football players were expected to play multiple positions. It's been over 60 years since the NFL has seen a full-time two-way player. Players that come to mind from that era include Jim Thorpe, Chuck Bednarik, Bobby Lane, and George Blanda. Those last two played quarterback and kicker, while Chuck played linebacker and center. Jim was simply one of the greatest athletes in the history of mankind, not only playing any position he could, but winning an Olympic gold medal. Again, it's been over 60 years since we've seen these types of players. It's a very exclusive list, and perhaps Travis Hunter has a chance to be a part of it. Over the next few years, we'll find out if that comes to fruition. He's still very early in his career, but already in his sophomore season, he's considered by some as a serious Heisman contender. It's a unique situation he's in, and no question has opened up some people's minds to guys that can do it. This type of performance going both ways could possibly change the game as we know it. Doing that is nothing new, but perhaps we could see it more prevalent in not only the college but professional game. Hunter will no doubt be a first-round pick once he's draft eligible. Playing both sides at this level consistently will do nothing but increase his draft stock, leaving us with only two questions. Is this type of play sustainable, and is it possible to play both ways for most of the season and remain this effective? Those will be answered as the season goes on, but right now it's looking very promising. With Colorado football's progress under Deion Sanders Sanders being the biggest story in all of sports, everyone is going to keep track of Travis Hunter's progress. Shohei Ohtani has revolutionized the game of baseball. We're still early, but if Travis Hunter continues to progress, perhaps football may have found its own version of Shohei Ohtani.